we're going to try a little crazy one here. What happens when your wife's not in town and you're a little bored? You decide to cook for yourself. I know, that's crazy, isn't it? Instead of going out to eat all the time. Although in one video I had said before, I'm not really a seafood person, but there's one big exception to that. Crab is by far probably my favorite thing to eat on the whole planet, as long as you give me a stick of butter to have with it, right? So that stuff is awesome. So I'm strolling through the grocery store here and I trip across this guy. Now, if you saw our post on Facebook many months ago, we ordered one of these in a restaurant and it was huge. It was another 40-50% bigger than this guy, and it was good. But it really surprised us, the way that it was prepared. When I say that I enjoy crab, it's usually crab legs and not crab per se. And then the thing that really threw me off, both of us off, is when we received it, the contents of the shell was actually cold, not really cold, cool. And it really kind of just was unexpected by both of us. We both expected it to have kind of a warm consistency. So I'm going to dive into this guy, which I've never done before. I did exactly what you're doing. I watched quite a few YouTube videos to watch the process of opening up one of these crabs and how to prepare it. And I am going to go at it here on camera, just in case you decide to come over and cook your own brown crab. Now, to start with, just as I said, this is a brown crab, and at least from the label, which I had to use Google Translate to translate, this is from Ireland. So I was caught in the ocean in Ireland and shipped down to Portugal here. But I do understand this is also, I believe, sometimes caught offshore here in just Portugal alone. So enough about the crab. Let's see how bad I can mess this up. All right, so how does this thing get started? Well, everyone on YouTube basically says, well, get you a few bowls and get ready to kind of parse it out. So I think I'm semi-prepared. I got my spoon to dip out the crab. I have the crab, I have the plate, and I have the bowl for the meat. So we'll get going from here and see what happens. Well, so what's the first thought you might be having is, what did that smell like when I brought it out of the package? Well, surprise, it smells just like crab that you'd get served at a restaurant. So it actually has a really good smell, non-fishy, just smells like crab. And as you can see, this little rascal is here, looking at him in his claws, looking at him underneath, and we are about to begin. Whoa! And we're about to begin the process. So, step number one is get the camera set up in such a way that you can actually maintain a good photo. So, step one is to take the claws here, closest to the knuckle here. Oh, that broke pretty darn easy, maybe easier than I expected. And set that guy off to the side. And we're going to do the same thing here with a little bit more control, a little less ferocity. We're going to take the legs and do the same. Really no different than you would do if you were eating it. Popping these guys off, pulling the meat out per the knuckle, but we're going to do that part last. The part that is going to be completely new to me is cleaning out the shell and seeing how that's done. So I watched quite a few videos, and they had different techniques in 2 or 3 different ones. But basically they all start with this guy has to come out here. And I saw people cut it, and I saw people pry it. The one that looked the best I'm going to try here, but this may not turn out so well. So basically putting your thumbs right here, pushing down on the shell, and lifting it out. Wow, that was actually super easy. That was no problem at all. let's face it, I've only ever seen this on a video. I've never actually been face to face with the inside of the crab other than the crab legs. And you must say that is not the prettiest looking thing. But what they say online is a couple of things. These are the crab's lungs. They are not edible. And although this brown stuff just doesn't look very good at all, it's called the dark meat of the crab. And they say the dark meat of the crab is fantastic, just like the white meat, so they all save it. So I'm going to begin the process of removing the lungs. Once we remove the lungs, this knuckle, just as the knuckle is often brought to the table when you eat crab, is full of meat, so we're going to have to work a little bit there. And we're going to scoop out the brown meat here and separate that. The orange. And the orange that you see is the roe. So this was a female crab, and these are crab eggs. And as they say on the videos, don't throw it away. So we'll let you know how all that turns out. So we're going to take off these lungs. As we said earlier, they are not edible. All right, we're going to start here with the dark meat. You can see, look at all the roe in there. You see all of the roe. I think that's clean enough for me, so we'll see how that works. Now, you must admit that is not the most appetizing looking substance, the brown meat, but they use it. Every video said don't throw it away. It's fantastic. Now this guy I saw 2 or 3 techniques in order to get the meat out of the knuckle. Oftentimes you'll have the knuckle brought to you and it's just packed full of meat. So we're going to start. We're going to use, I think, the method that says get a knife and cut it down the middle, maybe cut it again in fourths, and you can get to the meat most easily. So let's see if we can do this without amputating 2 or 3 fingers. And found this monstrosity of a knife here, and we're going to see how we end up cutting this. So not too difficult to cut. The back plate, actually one of the videos showed you pulling this off directly. Probably skipped that step. Maybe should rethink that for the next time around. But you now have direct access to the knuckles. So we're going to do what they did on the other station as well, which is they came and cut across this guy here, which is sounds violent, but actually is not that difficult of a thing to cut. Pretty much open right up there. All right, so we have ourselves knuckles and claws, pretty much what would come to the table. So we're going to take a few minutes here and we're just going to walk our way through getting the meat out of the knuckles. Slow, meticulous process. All right, so first impressions here. That's not too hard to work, but it's meticulous. And I will say, actually, after that much work, to really come away with just that much meat out of the knuckle, and that's a relatively small crab. But that's an awful lot of work for awful lot of work for not a whole lot of meat. Obviously, most of the meat's going to be in the legs, so we'll get started with that. All right, this may be a little bit more challenging without the proper cracking tools, but we're going to give it a go here and get out the meat. If you are used to eating crab legs, pretty simple process. Take each knuckle and just bend it back against the knuckle, and if you're lucky, the meat will come out directly. And that was not lucky because there's still a fair amount of meat stuck in there. With my homemade tool, I'll take the fork, hopefully not damage the fork, and more importantly, not get a bunch of chip bones in the white meat. So. So what are the thoughts after the inner shell, the knuckles, and the small legs? Well, that's still not very much meat, that's for sure. That's a lot of work. Yes, I could have pulled the little bit of meat out of all the small knuckles, but it's just not worth the effort. So fortunately, we're down to the last piece, which are the claws, which should about double the size of white meat that came out of the crab. So let's see how we wrestle ourselves into these things without the claw crackers. Say that 5 times fast. Just as a point of note, the shell, it was so, I would say, it was so hard and kind of crumbly each time I would break it. You could see it would throw crumbs around. You can see crumbs all the way back here. I'm sure I got 1 or 2 on this plate, so it's gonna make me have to filter the meat again. I was very cautious not to get bones and stuff in it, but I'll probably have to filter it 1 more time. On to the claws. That's right, balsamic vinegar bottle. Crack that puppy open. So you gotta make do. All right, there you have it. Well, so a couple of takeaways from this. There's the final pieces of it. The pile on the right is from the claws, and the pile on the left is from the body. So you kind of get some idea of where the meat comes from. And of course the dark meat with a little bit from the body area. So let's get to cleaning some of this mess up. Now, unlike any other relatively intelligent human being, I didn't go buy a bunch of ingredients to match a recipe that I found online. That makes life way too easy. And besides, when you eat crab meat, what do you eat it with? Butter. And I do have butter. So I'm going to see how bad I can screw up this crab meat, but I am going to warm it up, turn it into a paste per se, I guess. Eat it on some bread, probably. And I'll let you know how it tastes. Butter with garlic. All right, as I wait for the water for the pasta, the water and milk and butter to warm up for the pasta, you can see the brown meat is bubbling, and my objective here is to obviously blend in the flavors of the garlic and the onion, but also to boil off a lot of the extra water. So I want it to get kind of thick like a paste, so it's a little bit more clumpy to be able to just kind of put on the top, just in case I don't really like it. I can, slide it to the side. Hopefully that'll turn out pretty well. But I will tell you this, you wonder again, what does that smell like? Because it sure looks brown, and that's not the typical thing that you look for to kind of say it's appetizing. But I'll tell you, it smells like crab meat with butter and garlic and onions, and that smells fantastic. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. And we'll Yes, that's my own recipe. All right, we're getting close to the end of this thing. I think I've got it about the consistency I want, which is much more of a paste. Added a few more onions here in the late stage, and of course the homemade pasta is pretty much wrapped up. And I threw a plate in the microwave, so it's hot to the touch. So it should keep everything warm while I throw the white crab meat in the pan just to get a little heat in it. All right, we have the pan clean, and we have the butter melting, and we're going to do one of the things Christy does to keep adding pounds to me, which is we're going to toast a roll, and we're going to put it in the butter face down so it gets a little brown and buttery, and then we're going to throw in the white crab meat, and then we're going to serve it and see whether or not we wake up tomorrow. I try to keep the bread separate so it doesn't come out tasting directly like that meat. Oh, this is looking good though. I think it's probably going to be fair to say though that this is way too much food for one person, but hopefully it tastes good. All right, in order to make sure that we don't cross-contaminate everything, in case one thing just doesn't turn out very good, we don't want to throw everything away. So I'm going to serve it all separated and then eat it together and see how it turns out. All right, well, I have served myself. And I must admit, actually, that looks pretty darn good. Got my fantastic, I think it was once called American Champagne, which is, of course, Coca-Cola. And I'm going to sit here with my VR controllers and put this stuff in my mouth and see how it turns out. So let's set this camera up and let's eat and see if I make it through the day. By the way, I only lost one finger in the whole process, and it was the best one to lose. Well, let's do this to start with. Let's set the camera up so it doesn't fall. That's probably the best idea. And then I'm sure, by the way, the homemade pasta, excellent. Almost as if I just bought it off the shelf and mixed it together. But the thing I'm sure everyone, including me, is most curious about is the dark meat, the dark crab meat. Again, with butter, garlic, onion, and smells like crab. I'm going to try it without the bread first, just to give a good independent taste, and we'll see how it is here. Well, tastes like it came from the ocean, number one. And it's really salty, considering I put no salt in it. Must be the roe, must be the eggs. Is it good? It is good. Is it great? It's not great. I'm sure it's a little bit of a developed taste, but it's such a strong flavor. I think putting it on the bread is going to actually turn out really, really good. So let's try a bite with it on the bread. That stuff is so rich. That's amazingly dense in flavor. Oh, but the bread with the butter coming in at the end of it, it's good. On a scale of 10, it's a 7. It's still not as good as crab meat just dipped in butter. But speaking of that, let's try our white crab meat, which is essentially warm crab meat mixed with butter. So here we go. It tastes like crab meat with butter. Just a hint of browning flavor, probably cooking down sugars as I cooked it, maybe a little bit too long, but it's still crab meat with butter. So I'm going to enjoy this lunch. Hope you enjoyed watching the process of a complete amateur turning a crab into a edible meal. And I'll wait to post this till tomorrow just to make sure that I don't die of food poisoning, but I think I did pretty darn well on this. So I'm still alive right after I finished eating, and I want to give you a few thoughts. The first thought is, this is a lot of work, and it's easier to go to a restaurant. So let's start with that. Second thought is it's awesome to say you did it one time. Third thought, more importantly, would I do this again? And did I enjoy the food enough? Well, as I've mentioned before, I love crab. The white crab meat, it's a no-brainer, though it is easier to get snow crab legs or king crab legs with a lot of meat, do a lot less work for the same food. So that's probably decision number one. Decision number two is the dark meat. The dark meat is really interesting, and I've always kind of wanted to tell a broader audience kind of this view of life, and it comes around trying new foods and eating new foods. And what that means, at least to me personally, is I believe that's a part of being cultured and respectful of other people. As a general rule, when I've traveled the world, if people eat stuff in front of me, I'll eat it as well. And I've never really regretted that. However, just as everybody in life, when you try some things, it's not your favorite thing to start with. And let's face it, the favorite things are your favorite because you love them. Here's the thought I want to share. Studies have actually indicated that for a person to, quote, develop a taste for a food, it takes about 3 times of eating the food before you develop a taste. Now, I'll say the brown crab mixture that I have here, the one thing I would do different is put a lot more onions in it. I got a bite with the onion, so it's much more flavorful. There was probably a little too much roe in it. It just turned out to be that salty. Too salty. So I'd probably pull out a little bit of the roe. Probably depends on which crab you actually get and how much roe is in there. But the third piece is could you develop a taste where it became really good and a recipe a bit more refined so it's really good? And I'm certain the answer is yes. If you do like seafood, if you like things, seafood type casseroles, those things, that stuff could be made into a fantastic recipe, and probably already has. I'm just not aware of it. So work on your tolerance for flavors and try something like this. And just remember, the first bite isn't always the judgment. It takes maturity to work yourself through a few bites before you come to the conclusion that you do or you don't want something. And bon appetit. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If I wasted your time, hopefully you exited quite a while ago. And if not, look forward for you to go to the store, look at one of those crabs, and at least understand what it takes to make it. And it's worth your effort. It's an experience.